Sorry about that. Phew, but we're here. So I'm Risa. I'm here with my husband Kevin, and we are from Hudson Valley Vintage. This is our blanket ladder workshop. As you can see, our set designer has...
We're surrounded by blanket ladders.
We're surrounded by blanket ladders tonight. These blanket ladders that are part of the kit that we still have available are antique blanket ladders. We actually got them.
Authentic peach and apple orchard ladders. Yep.
Yeah, we got them from a very old farm not far from here, and they're really, really neat. So if you have our kit, if you bought the blanket ladder kit, let me explain to you what it comes with. So it comes with a blanket ladder. They average about 5 feet high, and they're anywhere from like 14 inches wide to like very wide, like that one that we just showed you.
Almost 3 feet.
Although we only have a couple of those. You get your choice of milk paint colors. We're using real milk paint, so you get that. You get half and half, which is actually it's a tongue oil. So tongue oil, let me just explain quickly, does not absorb into wood on its own that well. Generally, you have to add some sort of a solvent. So what the people at Real Milk Paint do is they add a citrus solvent, so it's natural. So that's going to be what we use to seal the ladder.
So it smells nice too, right?
It smells great. There's a couple of different kinds of sandpaper, there's brushes, there's a stick for mixing. I think that's everything. The kit is $55, and as I said, we still have some left. If you're interested after this class, just shoot me an email. For the blanket ladder workshop, we're going to be using Real Milk Paint. This is another product made in the US. We're really excited about bringing you guys US products. Nothing wrong with products made in other countries, but you know, it's easier to get. Made in the USA.
Shipping's easier.
Shipping's easier.
No customs.
So I mixed this up earlier, probably about an hour or so ago, and I just put it aside. We're actually going to be painting something else. We're not even going to paint a blanket ladder, and I'll tell you why. We've had so much demand for them. I don't really want to waste one on me doing it. They're also really large, so this would probably take a couple of hours to do with the whole thing.
Yep.
So rather than making you sit and watch us for hours, we're going to do a smaller project, but everything is going to be the same. You're going to do
the same
it
kind of.
the
It's
same
old
way.
wood, so it will cover the same.
Yes.
Everything.
So what I want you to do before you start, when you do this on your own, is you're going to need a cup. We provided you with a stick to mix, so you don't need that. You're going to need a tablespoon or a teaspoon, something to measure with. You're going to need water, and you're going to need a lint-free cloth. But if there's anything else, I'll mention it. Okay, so let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is mix up another color. So I picked Snow White, which I showed you already. And what I wanted to do is pick a very dark color, just to have two different contrasts, because a lot of people pick dark colors, a lot of people pick light colors. We actually sold a whole bunch of these kits. So the Real Milk Paint comes in this cute little paint can, which is adorable. It's also recyclable, which is great. I'm going to mix 2 tablespoons of my powder. Now I'm going to take my water and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of water.
Those, you know, you can't do heaping tablespoons of water.
Exactly.
It just doesn't work.
No. And you know, I just like to use a popsicle stick.
Yep.
So I've got it all mixed up. So here's like a major tip alert. You know, we need like, if we were like a really high-tech operation.
I'd be able to scroll it across
Yeah,
the screen.
major tip alert. Major tip alert. Yeah. Major tip alert. Once you're done mixing your milk paint, once you've got all the powder mixed up completely, you're going to put it aside.
So
it is really important because if you start painting right away, it's going to be a little gritty. Remember we said that the real milk paint isn't gritty? It's not unless you don't...
You got to give it a few minutes.
You got to give it a few minutes.
But
so what's going to happen is that the pigments are going to open up more. You just need...
It'll get a little thicker too.
It will get a little thicker. So just trust me. Okay, so we are not going to paint a complete blanket ladder, only because it's going to take too long, and I want to show you two different ways to do this. So what we're going to do is we have this really great primitive taupe, and I'm going to paint this, okay?
It's got all old wood slats,
Yeah.
so it's slats, so it's very ladder-ish, and very dusty too.
It's very dusty.
It's like out of the Addams Family.
I know. This did not get TSP'd. Let me clean it a little bit. After your paint has been sitting for a while, I want you to give it another little mix, because you'll notice that the powder is going to settle at the bottom. So I'm just going to dip I'm using a synthetic brush, and I'm just going to dip my brush in and let it drip off a little bit. You'll notice that
You're putting a lot of paint on there.
yeah, you'll notice that the milk paint's a little bit more watery than most other paints, and that's normal. What you don't want is to lift your brush up and have it like just dripping like crazy all over the place. So I'm just going to start painting, and I'm going to do a little bit more of a solid look with the white. This is another big tip alert for milk paint. Once you start painting, if you feel like you're putting your brush down and it's just dripping everywhere, you need to add a little powder to your paint. Okay? If you feel as though you're pushing the paint and it's not sliding nicely, you need to add a little water. Okay, so too much dripping all over, you need a little powder. Too much powder that's not easily going nice and smooth, you need a little bit of water. Now, with the milk paint, I'm actually able to go back and forth a little bit more. A lot of other furniture paints, the more you play with it,
You pull it off.
you're pulling it off, you're making more marks, you're making more brush strokes. With this, it's a lot more forgiving. So if you're a beginner, if you're one of those people that tells me, because I get a lot of them, I just can't do this without getting brush strokes, you might want to try milk paint because it's a lot more forgiving. Now, unlike the Paint Couture and other paints that we carry like Fusion or General Finishes, you do need to seal milk paint. But that's okay, it's easy, and we're going to show you how to do that today, because we are going to seal these projects. So let's look back at this other side, and you can see how well that covered, and it's drying almost. I'm going to do another coat because I do want it to cover a little bit more, because I'm going to show you how to distress it. Okay, so I'm going to let these dry, the sides, these slats. And now I'm going to go back to my, I think it's probably been about 15 minutes since I mixed this. So this is the Dragonfly, and I'm going to mix it up a little bit more. And for these ends here, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to use it sort of like, well, at least I'm going to start. I'm going to try to use it as a dry brush first. Dry brushing it. Okay. So this is really mixed up well. I think the consistency is still good. And I'm going to take my brush. Again, I'm using a synthetic brush, and everybody that got the kit has one of these brushes. And I'm just going to put a little paint on my brush and kind of wipe it off on the side of my cup. So I'm going to take my brush and start like at the end, and I'm kind of just going to sweep it down. I think I even took a little too much paint off. Okay, yeah, that's a little better. So when I dry brush, I like to go from end to end. I'm doing a little bit more than a typical dry brush. What I usually tell people when I'm dry brushing is, if your brush looks wet, you have too much paint on it. I know this does look wet, but I'm doing a little bit more than I typically would. And also, if you're trying to dry brush, if you're doing a typical dry brush and you just feel like you can't get enough paint off, use, go like this on paper or whatever surface you have and get off a little bit of paint. Just some dry brushing tips. Tip alert! Oh, I love that. All right, I'm gonna take a break on this and add another coat here because I want it to be a little more solid. What I'm really trying to do is show you two different ways that you can do your ladder. So I'm going to put a little bit more, while that dries, I'm going to put a little bit more of this on. And remember the dragonfly, this blue-green color, it's really like a teal, is the color I'm using as my dry brush. And it's kind of thickening up a little bit, so if I was doing a bigger project, I would definitely add some water to it. And as you go, you may find that you want to add a little water to your paint to make it go further, and that's fine. That's normal.
Why don't you paint the inside solid? Try
I
that.
can't see the inside. Do you
Okay.
think I should paint this solid?
No, they like solid.
All right, let me
So
keep
far.
going.
If it becomes too solid, you can sand it. You can distress it back if you
Yeah.
like.
Well, let's see. Let's see. So I'm going to take, I have a lint-free cloth here. This is just a little, we get these like at Home Depot. They come in it's like a bag of rags. So I'm going to take this. Now, since this is water-based,
Some water.
I'm going to take a spray bottle. I always like to have a spray bottle nearby. And I'm going to really dampen it. Dampen, not drench. So I don't want this like dripping. And let's see what happens if I wipe this back a little bit with the grain. Can you see how that's coming off? And we can see the, can really see the grain. So now we have a third way to do this project. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my white here. So what I'm going to do first is take my sandpaper. Now everybody that got a kit should have 2 pieces of sandpaper. you should have a piece like this, and it's going to be either 100 or 150. Now with sandpaper, the lower the number, the grittier it is. The higher the number, the smoother it is, the finer it is. And then you have a sanding pad. This is actually reusable. You can get it wet, you can rinse it. And this is very, very fine grit. So what I'm going to do now I'm only going to do this on the areas where I painted it opaque, where it's solid. And I'm just going to give this a very light sanding. I'm not looking to remove any paint right now. I'm just looking to smooth this out a little bit. So now I'm going to take my my oil. So we're using tung oil. So this is called half and half. And if you missed it earlier, what I said was it's tung oil mixed with a citrus solvent. So it's half tung oil, half citrus solvent. The reason being, tung oil doesn't absorb as well into wood as like a hemp oil. So what they do is they add a solvent. A lot of people will use solvents that are really strong and harsh, but Real Milk Paint uses a citrus solvent.
So it smells nice.
It smells great. I'm just going to pour a little bit. Oh, that's a lot. A little on my plate. And
yeah, note to self, don't turn the jar upside down on the plate.
So what I would use, if you have like a cheap, inexpensive chip brush, those are great. These are great. These are also very inexpensive. What you don't ever want to do is take your good synthetic brush and put it into an oil, because you've ruined it, because you can't use it with paint again. So I'm just going to brush this on. There is no special trick to this. Look how now it shows up, the wood underneath where I sanded it a little bit, and that's what it's going to do to your ladder.
So tung oil, actually, I was wrong. So it's extracted from nuts, and it, once it is thoroughly cured, it is food safe.
Good. So if you have like butcher block or
cutting boards,
mm-hmm.
That's why when I said butcher block, I'm like, wait a minute, I've heard of tung oil. So it's one of the best oils for butcher block. Yeah.
And you know, it's more durable than hemp oil. We love hemp oil, but tung oil is a little more durable. I love how this looks on this dragonfly
This is right
color.
from Real Milk Paint. So.
Don't you love how this looks?
Mm-hmm.
So once you have all your paint covered with the tongue oil, you want to do your whole piece. If you go back, let's say in a half hour, and it's completely dry, you can add you can put another layer of the tongue oil. If oil is on the surface like it is here, my favorite lint-free cloths to use for wiping back oil is our shop towels. So now I'm just going to take my cloth and I'm just going to wipe back the excess oil sitting on the paint. I don't need to buff it, I'm just wiping it back. Okay, so actually here where I put it, it's dry already, so I'm going to add, and that has not yellowed at all, by the way. I'm going to add just a little bit more because it dried really, I mean the wood just completely absorbed the tongue oil. And do not be surprised if that happens to your ladders because this is old antique wood, just like this is. So just go around and do another coat. Then what I'm going to do is go to the areas where it hasn't completely absorbed, where it's just sitting on the surface, and again I'm going to wipe back the excess. Just a little bit. In the rougher spots like this, where it's like sitting in the grooves, don't make yourself crazy about it.
And on the knots it won't absorb in anyway.
Yeah. I feel like the tongue oil just, you know, finishes it so well. It makes it...
Gives it a rich look to it.
It does. It does. So, and the reason I wanted to use a white and a dark color was just to show you how, you know, either way you go, you know, you can get a great look. So I just want to point out, so if you have the blanket ladders and you're going to be painting them, think about, first of all, do you love the wood? Do you want to cover the wood? Do you want to enhance the wood?
If you look at the rungs on the ends, how they come out,
Yeah.
that's a great area to give some distress to them. Look at that.
Yeah.
They look great that way.
They're really amazing. So, you know, as you watch this tutorial, think about, you know, what you love about the wood, what you want to cover about the wood, and play with it and have fun.
And we want to see your ladders.
Oh my God, absolutely we want to see your ladders. I want to see what you do with your ladders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it. We will be back next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. And like we told you earlier, if you missed it or didn't miss it, starting next Wednesday, we're going to be on our Facebook page at 6 o'clock. And then we're going to be on again at 7:30 on Paint Couture's Facebook page. And that's going to be every week. That's our date night. That's our date. It's a date. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have a great night. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening.